Good evening and welcome to We the People. One of the world's most high-profile and successful women, the CEO of PepsiCo, has triggered a global debate with her remarks that women can't have it all. What did Indra Nooyi mean exactly? Can anyone have it all? Can men have it all? Or did she actually reopen an unsettled debate that even today, whether in India or abroad, as women continue to, in a sense, at least crack open the glass ceiling, if not smash it entirely, the same old problems remain and persist, that the pressures of the home pull back women from attaining their full potential at work. Is it women in particular who continue to find it difficult to juggle their professional dreams with domesticity? And of course, the guilt syndrome. Why do so many women and not men feel guilty about the work-life balance? Before we introduce our panel today and of course take questions from the audience, the statistics in India alone are telling. It's enough to say that the participation of women in the labour force has actually declined. You would think it should be the other way around, but it has declined. Also, more women are part of the workforce in rural areas than in urban areas. In other words, where there is an economic imperative to work, women do. But where they can afford not to work, they do not necessarily work. And only 5% of the roughly 23% women who are part of the labour force ever make it to the top in India. That's against the global average, some studies say, of 20% women globally who make it to the top of their careers. Let's introduce very quickly our panel. Tonight we have Kirron Kher. She's of course somebody we know as an artist on the big screen, but of course a member of parliament from the BJP as well. Sangita, Reddy, one of our big corporate names. She's of course with Apollo Hospital. Suhel, Seth, somebody we know to not ever pull his punches. Firuza, Parikh, one of our best known fertility specialists, a doctor who works literally from morning to night, so we don't know how we've managed to get her to come from Mumbai to Delhi. Surjit, Bhalla, who's actually done a very important paper. He's co-authored a paper studying why women fall out of the workforce and whether things are changing. Meera, Sanyal, we know her in many avatars, of course as a big corporate name, but also as an Aam Aadmi Party politician. And Jagi, Panda, who is of course somebody who comes from my industry, the larger media industry, looks after a big regional channel in Orissa. So let me start with you, Kirron, if I may. How difficult has it been for you? You have donned many hats, you know, you've been an actor, you have been a politician, you have to be away long hours, you're also a parent, you're also a wife. What defines you? Does all of this define you, or what defines you first? Because that's really the point that Indra was touching on, that her mother looked at her and said, you know, even today when you walk into the house, you are first daughter, daughter-in-law, wife. A number of women would take objection to that today.
Well, let me put it this way, that I didn't start working in movies till my son turned 14, because Anupam and I are both actors, and he was always on the road, you know, shooting for films, and a very busy actor. So I opted not to work till Sikandar turned 14, so that he needed one parent at least at home.
When you say you opted,
yes,
could that parent not have been the man?
No, because he already had a very successful career, and I hadn't really started working in movies. So I don't think it would ever have been like that. I wish it could be. I've always said, Barkha, I need a wife. You know, I wish I had a wife.
But you know that you're confirming the stereotype of the wife here.
Yeah.
By saying you need a wife.
Yeah, I do, because let me tell you that no major
Because what you want somebody to do, you can get an executive assistant also.
That's what you think. They won't pack for you. They won't make sure that you're ordering the right kind of food. You know, I would be at shooting and my cook would call me and my spot boy would say, Madam, ghar se phone aaya tha, zara khane ka order de do. Even though I would every day tell him, aap subah kyun nahi pooch lete mere se? And you can't really make a menu for the whole week because people say, oh my God, it's so predictable. If it's Tuesday, it must be gobi aloo, you know. So you can't do that. So it's very, and let me tell you that acting is very draining, it's very time consuming. And now that I've joined politics, I am not a housewife any longer. I've kept a housekeeper in Bombay because I have moved bag and baggage to Delhi.
But I'm hearing you say that till your son grew up, you were not ready to actually jump full swing into the workforce. A lot of women would have a problem with that because maybe you had. Do you feel it compromised your career to stay out for that long?
Yes, of course. I lost out 14 good years. But the only thing is that you're very lucky if you have a family which has a joint family, because then people can take over. If you're a nuclear family, which is husband, wife and kids, then who will look after the kids? Who will do homework? Who will attend PTA?
Let me get Suhel to come in here. Suhel, how should we look at, this happens to a number of people, and it's so interesting. I'm actually sitting next to somebody who also, I think, opted not to work till her child was 14, the same age. So this is quite uncanny. But before we hear this story, a number of young women would be disturbed by what Kirron has said, because then again, the responsibility falls on the woman to take the step back while the child is growing up. Isn't this a reaffirmation of the gender expectation?
I think it is, but in India, to get rid of any kind of stereotype is difficult. Number one. Number two, I think men have this nasty habit of driving guilt through women who don't play a stereotypical role. So I think men are the real culprits rather than the women. Women fall for this guilt business. And I think ultimately it's about the choices you make. So, when Indra Nooyi says that women can't have it all, but what is all and what do you want?
Yeah.
You've got a successful career. You're the chairperson of a beverage company, which I won't name because it's not half as good as Coca-Cola. And,
you're of course plugging your own case here.
And you talk about not having it all.
Every platform,
but I think the bigger problem which Kirron has identified is those stereotypes themselves have changed. You don't need a woman to manage the house. You need a woman's definition to be that of companionship, someone you can respect. You can't treat the woman as a non-paid, domestic help, which is largely the definition. Many years ago, I said in an article in Times of India, if you were to monetize the average contribution of an Indian housewife in an SEC B home, you would have had to pay her about 27,000 rupees. If you adjust for inflation.
No, I think that's fair, but I think what happens to women who are professional women, but who are also expected to manage the home, Suhel, so they're actually performing, they're performing two jobs. And I think that in a sense is double jeopardy. Now, I want to hear from this couple first, because from what I understand, and I'm going to, I think, get a little annoyed with you about this, you asked your wife not to work when you got married.
Yeah, kind of. The whole thought process there was somebody has to do the balancing act, and I agree with Kirron.
Why couldn't it be you?
It's like Anupam Kher sir, I already had a career. She was just beginning. So we said, somebody has to take the balancing act. Not that I have it all. So, I don't know if men also don't have it all. So,
but in this day and age, why did you want your partner to not work? I don't get that.
No, I don't mean by work. See, there's a important part of life which I personally think I missed out. When I was growing up, my mother worked for about 37 years. I never ever had an opportunity to see her every day. But
wasn't it the same for your dad? I mean, I assume he worked too. But you held it against your mother.
I wouldn't say held it against her, but what I wanted was what I missed. I didn't want that to happen to my children, my son actually. So we said, he's here. And so we said, let's have a pact, at least the time till he's about 10, 13. Let him grow up, take care of the house, because that's a big general management.
But you didn't feel like you missed out, were you?
No.
What do you do now? I believe you started working.
Yeah, I'm a teacher. Like past 8 years I'm working. So.
But suppose you wanted to do something else, because maybe the job of a teacher allowed you the flexibility to come in later. But suppose you had wanted to do something else that you couldn't have joined at a later age. I mean, what would you have felt about it?
No, I think first itself I just made it a mind like I would be a teacher. I like kids. So that is the reason. So not a guilt feel like here and there that way.
Surjit, let me bring you in. Now this is, I may say, why did you say this to her? But this is what many homes go through. We've heard it from Kirron.
Nobody said it to me, Barkha, it's the mother in me. It's not the wife in me that didn't let me work. It was the mother in me. I couldn't leave my child alone.
But this Kirron, the whole motherhood. The whole motherhood thing is where the deepest conflicts arise. It's not even so much marriage, it's motherhood, it's parenthood. I think that causes perhaps the deepest anxieties. Surjit, what did your study find?
Look, if we were to look at or ask Ms. Nooyi, what would she say to her daughter today? I would imagine be very, very different than what her mother told her. And if you were to ask her daughter 20 years from now, I don't know how old she is, what she is saying to her kids,
daughter, yeah.
Listen, we're going through a revolution. India is participating a bit later in the revolution. The West has gone through it. Russia.
Although, by the way, I discovered just recently that the United States does not have mandatory paid maternity leave. So that's quite something, that while in many other indices they're ahead of us.
And in Sweden, you get equal amounts whether you're a man or a woman.
And I would support that, because at least that doesn't reinforce
the other part of the
stereotype.
revolution, you had mentioned about a paper that I had co-authored, which was actually with my wife. So that shows you actually how both career people can work. But, you know, a striking finding about India was that you said rightly that the labor force participation rate of women has gone down.
Yeah.
Why has it gone down? Because education is not considered part of labor force participation. More and more women have gotten into getting themselves educated. So therefore, if once you control for the fact that they're getting themselves educated, there is no decline in the labor force participation. Indeed, the labor force participation has gone up. What does that tell you? That tells you, look, if you know, you're saying about the men having it all, okay? Men have to adjust. There was a time 30, 40 years ago, they were the only breadwinners. Now there's somebody else who's an equal and a more dominant breadwinner in many cases, as in Ms. Nui's case. So therefore, they were the smartest and they were the only educated people. Now, there are lots of women who are smarter than them and who are more educated. The average education level of young Indians, which are urban Indians between the ages of 15 and 24, is higher
but the
by
anxieties
0.1
that
years for
women
women
feel
than for
about
men.
parenthood.
So what I'm saying is we are going through a change, a radical change, a very welcome change. All of us will have to adjust, and this is part of the changing world order.
Firuza, you know, I want you to talk from two aspects. One, your own experience, and the other is the fact that you actually are one of the foremost doctors that deal with assisted reproduction. Now, this speaks to what is happening to a number of professional women. Now, Indra Nooyi said the biological clock and the career clock are in complete conflict. And there are any number of women who are actually saying, at this moment, I just cannot have children, because if I have children, I have to put aside my career. I cannot follow my career in the way that I want to, and then when they want to have children later, it's biologically too late for them. So do you feel that biology itself militates against absolute equality? That in a sense, our choices are not free. They've been predetermined by this biological fatalism.
So Barkha, let me first talk about my own experience as a mother, as a wife, as a working woman. For me, the role was in fact reverse. When I came back from Yale and started at Jaslok as an infertility specialist, I had to go head on into my career. I didn't have the option of being a good mother. In fact, whenever we came up with an innovation, like we did something for the first time in Asia or in the world, and somebody called me a super doc, I would cringe with pain, because I felt that, okay, if I'm a super doc, I can't be a super mom. And at that point, I made a choice. I said, look, I can't differentiate between my family and my patients. I cannot draw a line. So my family got used to me missing their birthdays, because I had to go and cut a birthday cake when one of my patients' child had the first birthday. So I made that choice, and I'm happy to say that now my role is reversed. As we have settled down and as my career has smoothened out, and I had a lot of help from my family, from Rajesh, my husband who's a doctor, from our domestic help, who has stuck with us for the last 25 years, and of course our friends and extended family.
But I find it interesting that you said that if you're a super doc, you can't be a super mom. Now, my point is that men are not grappling with these questions. Isn't that? Men are not sitting there agonizing that if I'm a super banker, if I'm a super advertising guy, I can't be a super.
But they are.
But
Are
men,
they? Did you,
This is the
Surjit?
changing world order. Absolutely.
No, I don't think they are.
Yeah.
They don't care. It doesn't enter their mind.
I mean,
सुबह में कपड़े पहन के निकल जाते काम पे।
Surjit-
रात को आते रास्ते में बोलते खाने में क्या बनाया है?
No, Surjit does.
Excuse me, I'm shooting also.
No, but Surjit does agonize because of two reasons. A, his wife is far brighter than he is. And B, she's also careerist.
Yeah.
But I think men actually say that, look, that's your problem. You've got to deal with it. They only deal with problems related to women when it actually hurts their career or hurts their mobility upwards or vertically or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think, it's a bit of a challenge for men to recognize that the equality of women is not something that you bestow on women, but it's something that should happen
But they are demanding. Women are demanding equality. So men don't have a choice anymore.
No, but
We
are
used to have a
women
choice, but
demanding
don't have a choice
equality? You know,
anymore.
Meera, are we demanding equality, or are we willing to go along with that partner of ours who'll call me and say, "Aaj khane mein kya bana hai?" Even if we have worked the same number of hours. What was really telling in Indra Nui's account of her conversation with her mother is that her husband was at home and he could have got the milk from the market that she was commanded to go out and get. So, is it not true that women, while working, are also saying, "Aaj khane mein ye bana do," to their help, are also saying wo chadar badli ya nahi, are also saying oh wo guests aa rahe hain khane ke liye aaj bhindi bana dena. I mean, aren't these conversations going on while you're striking billion-dollar deals?
They absolutely are, Barkha, and I think what you've done is you've touched on a very important thing, and this is why women are so valuable in the workforce, because they're able to multitask. I mean, this is a great skill that women
But
have.
the more we romanticize this multitasking, the more we're expected to do it.
No, the thing is, Barkha,
have a
look,
nervous breakdown.
yes, no.
Yes.
Let's be
I'm just gonna
absolutely
get you.
clear about this, and I think this is not just an Indian woman phenomenon. This applies all across the world. You know, I was with Hillary on this Council of Women Business Leaders, and I was absolutely astonished that the issues we are talking about and grappling with are issues for women everywhere in the world. The reason is that the woman is the primary caregiver. That's the way we feel. I mean, as Kirron says, it's what we internalize. The point is that we should not be forced by everyone else to make those choices. This is a personal choice. A woman can choose to have a family now, later, never. That's a personal choice, just as a man can do it. I think the point is, what do we as a society do, what do men do, and what do women do to themselves?
But you know, I must interject there to ask if these choices are free, because there's the eternal feminist debate is how much of it is nurture and how much of it is nature. For example, as Surjit said, if you had equal paternity leave and maternity leave, would that be one step towards breaking the assumption that at home it has to be the woman who's the primary caregiver? You were wanting to come in on the fact that why do women want to be the superwomen?
Yeah, I mean, because I am a professor and I've been teaching in a girls' college, and I've seen, you know, girls wearing these sweatshirts saying, walk like a boss and act like a lady or whatever. I mean, both have to be balanced. And why is this question about balancing both, you know, is a woman's prerogative? That's something that, you know, bothers me.
You're saying why is it only specific to women?
Yeah, I mean, this question about balancing only comes or surfaces when it comes to women.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I think the fact that Indra, you see, the thing is that Steve Jobs would probably not have been asked this question, or Bill Gates would probably not get asked. I mean, Surjit, Suhel, would you concede that? I mean, are you guys ever asked how do you balance your work and?
I am, because I live alone. But I think on a more serious note, you know the point. I think a lot of women, and with due respect, also make a big deal about the fact that they're doing dual functionalities. You know that, oh, I'm managing my home, I'm doing. So there's a lot of grandstanding that also occurs.
Yeah.
The reality is large sections of India's society wants to stereotype the role of a woman. Until that changes qua education, you won't have that mindset change. See, it's about the mindset. It's not about whether you're going to work today or not. Look at the guilt that they're subjected to. Look at the taunting that they're subjected to. And don't talk about, you know, the elite. If you actually look, and it's primarily the middle class. The lower class and the upper elite kind of move away. But it's the middle class where this guilt is most relevant.
And who is reinforcing it? Jagi, have you experienced this guilt?
Talking about guilt, I think I personally feel that the work-life balance term needs to be redefined. Simply because you cannot, at least for people who are leaders in corporates, it would be difficult to separate work and life.
As Firuza was saying, I mean, you can't draw this line neatly.
Absolutely. So, having said that, I think only when the word balance goes out, I think we will stop feeling guilty.
That's interesting.
But of course, as anybody else, I also at times felt, but on both the sides, it's not just at the work side, or not just the family side, even on the work side.
You felt that you were not giving your work.
Absolutely.
Firuza, you're nodding in agreement with that. Just before I get Sangita, you're saying that the guilt actually travels not just into the home space, but it also travels into the workspace. And this has to be, you know, somebody tweeted our program today saying women are genetically programmed to feel guilty. Is it genetically programmed? Is it genetically programmed, or are we socialized into guilt?
Society programs.
I think we are programmed into it. But just let me make a point here to note. I think women are as fallible as men.
Yeah.
I think we expect too much of ourselves. Men expect too much of themselves.
Yeah.
And if we know exactly what we want for ourselves, rather than all the time that if we don't have the greed in us to get more and more and more, and we recognize the role that we play for ourselves, for our family, I think would be much happier.
But Sangita, we have not resolved this eternal question. Like some women, and I have argued this sometimes, that we should not romanticize some skills as female. You know, the moment we start saying, as Meera said, that we are better at this because we are women, then somebody will turn around and say, well, if there are certain skills that are only female, maybe managing the home or rearing children is one of them. Then we're back to the stereotype.
So just kind of putting some of this in perspective, I think the successful women you have up here, so to speak, all of us are probably above 40. And I think the women in their 20s who are sitting in your audience are going to have a different angle to this.
Yeah.
If I look back at when I started, I did say I can handle everything, I can do work and home, because I wanted permission to go to work. Because in those days you needed permission, you needed license, you needed your husband, you needed your mother-in-law, you needed society, you needed everything. And so, because you had the drive and the passion and you loved what you do, you said, I can handle both. And you made yourself do it. It was a little easier for me. I had, you know, a protective father. When you're in healthcare, it's not like, you know, you're working just for the sake of working. There is a mission and a passion. But as society's evolved, as we have evolved, I think we are seeing this very important change. And first, I'd completely break the stereotype that women are only good at some things. You're seeing women succeed in every sphere. I think my sisters, each of us have different complementary skills completely. I mean, one of them is more aggressive, somebody is more insightful, someone's a people person. So women have every skill set possible.
But you know,
we should break the stereotype.
But Kirron, I'm pretty sure, and I don't know, I don't want to generalize for men, but I'm pretty sure a number of men would resent their partners if they had to give up parts of their career to accommodate, you know, for the wife. But you accommodated for Anupam. Women do it all the time. Did you ever feel resentful?
Well, I would say I accommodated for Sikandar.
I
wouldn't say for Anupam, because time spent with Anupam was time that I wanted to spend with him.
Yeah.
So it wasn't as if he ever forced me to. I would say that if it's a free will choice, it's all right.
Is it a free choice?
Yes, for me it was a free choice. If it is forced on you, like she said that you need permission. At the same time, the work that they do in family-oriented corporates is they can make time for themselves. Whereas in the kind of line I'm in, you can't tell a producer, I can't give you this date because I'd rather.
But I think that's speaking to Jagi what you were saying, that actually this
sorry,
word balance.
I need to clarify one thing. In healthcare, you can't make time for yourself. You're 24/7.
Yeah, okay,
no,
maybe.
But am I then hearing from everybody here that it's actually impossible to draw the line between work and life?
No, not at all.
It is possible?
Of course it is. Of course
not
it
in
is.
all jobs.
I think you have to. I mean, you need to say that there is personal time and there is, you know, there is other time. It's not just your work and your family, it's also personal time.
But can everybody have the space professionally, Jagi, to draw that line?
I personally don't think so, because especially I'm only talking about people who are in leadership roles. And when they are in leadership roles, for them,
have to be on call
work is life.
No.
And I personally think that the work-life balance is very elusive.
Parikh, it's the maturity of the partnership. The crux is in the maturity of the partnership. If you have a husband who's secure, whose ego is not going to be hurt, who's confident of himself, he will enjoy his wife's pleasure.
One of the things I want to raise here is whether the work-life balance is actually a terribly elite concern, because there are women, and as Surjit's study has found, that there are higher number of women in the labor force in rural areas than in urban areas, and I think your study also says that as income goes up, as income of men goes up in urban areas, less women, there's a decline.
Yeah, but there's a changing. That was a traditional.
That was a traditional model. It's changing.
Now with education, why did we have that? Look, without women being educated, then it was the case that basically the man worked, earned the money, there was enough money in the household, so therefore the woman didn't have to work. And in the poor areas, which is the rural areas, both women and men had to work because they were poor. Once your education level and your income levels go up, women and men are also demanding a very different kind of life. So therefore, if they are educated, They're employable. If they're employable, they want to work. They don't want to sit at home and do nothing. So therefore, that's the changing order.
And we will
hear one last point.
Yeah.
Do not underestimate how much the world is changing in terms of work, welfare, and, if you will, attitudes. Internet, working from home, is now going to make it very easy for men to stay at home and take care of the baby if the woman has to go out for her job
but
outside.
the point is men have to be willing to do it.
No, and they're doing it.
But they don't have a choice of doing it.
Sorry.
Yeah, I do agree that as our communication becomes 24/7 and we have access to information 24/7, it's difficult to actually separate work life.
But that strains relationships even more because everybody's always on their phones.
No, so
Yes, that's a separate problem. That's an easier problem to solve.
But if our focus was always to balance, it will be a lot more stressful. I think what we need to do is to blend the two. To find a way like...
I'm hearing two distinct opinions on this panel. One is that this work-life separation, not possible. The other is, it has to be done, it can be done. Now, is this something that some women can even afford to consider? I just want to get a perspective from two different women here. आप अपना नाम बताइए.
भगवानी कौर मेरा नाम.
भगवानी जी, आप घर में काम करती हैं?
हाँ जी, मैं
क्या काम करती हैं?
मैं चौका बर्तन और झाड़ू पोछा काम करती हूँ मैं घर में.
और घर में आदमी है?
हाँ जी, आदमी है, लेकिन वो दिहाड़ी वाले हैं. जैसे कभी लग गई तो दिहाड़ी करी, नहीं लगी तो 2-2 महीने बैठे रहते हैं फिर.
अच्छा, तो जो मैं आपसे पूछना चाहती हूँ कि आप बाहर भी जाती हैं काम करने, घर भी आप ही संभालती हैं?
हाँ जी, घर भी मैं संभालती.
बच्चे भी आप ही संभालते हैं?
हाँ जी, बहू है घर में. अब शादी की थी तो बहू है, बहू के 2 बच्चे हैं, जैसे एक पोता है एक पोती है. लड़का भी एक्सीडेंट से ख़त्म हो गया मेरा, तो वो पूरा घर जैसे मैं ही संभालती हूँ. जैसे घर का भी है, बच्चे भी देखने हैं.
आदमी घर में मदद करते हैं?
नहीं करते हैं.
कभी बोलते हैं आप उनको कि मदद करें?
हाँ जी, मैं बोलती हूँ, लेकिन वो तो ऐसे हैं कि जैसे एक गिलास पानी भी भर के नहीं पीते हैं. वो तो ये कहते हैं कि पानी भी हमें हाथ में उठा के दो.
तो आपको गुस्सा नहीं?
अब गुस्सा आता है, फिर क्या करें, आदमी है.
Now Kiran, this is what you were speaking to. गुस्सा आता है ना?
हाँ जी, फिर क्या करें?
अगली बारी पानी फेंक देना. But this is what you were speaking to. कि घर से निकली और फोन करके बोला आज खाने में क्या है?
हाँ, खाने में क्या है? But actually, to be fair to Anupam, ऐसा कुछ
नहीं. No, I didn't mean that.
You know, I would probably say आप उठाओ पानी और मेरे लिए भी एक ग्लास ले आना. So it's not that, but I can understand where she's coming from.
Yeah.
And where a large part of Indian women do come from.
Yeah.
It is the need to have to work. And you see in the villages, these men sitting under the trees,
playing tash,
bidi pee rahe hain, and the women are working in the fields.
Yeah.
And half of the men are only drinking in the evening. That's what they're doing.
आप भी घरों में काम करती हैं? कितना लोग हैं घर में? आपके घर में?
मेरे घर में
बच्चे हैं?
हम 7 लोग हैं.
कि बच्चे हैं?
हाँ, बच्चे हैं.
आदमी क्या करते हैं?
आदमी तो गाड़ी साफ करते हैं.
तो घर में मदद करते हैं आपकी?
घर में नहीं करते हैं.
तो आप बाहर भी जाती हैं, काम भी करती हैं, पैसा भी कमाती हैं, घर भी संभालती हैं. तो आप दो काम करती हैं, एक तरह से घर का भी और बाहर का भी. और जैसे इन्होंने कहा गुस्सा आता है, आपको भी आता है अपने आदमी?
घर जाकर मेरे भी आती है गुस्सा कि थोड़ा सा मदद करें.
Achha, I want to put in a question honestly to the audience. Men who help out at home, please raise your hand. Who help out at home? Men who help out at home. Am I seeing some hands go here? You're saying you help out at home even though you ask. Okay. How do you help out?
I help out my mom in, sometimes in cooking or sometimes, just by cutting the vegetables. Yeah, but sometimes.
And do you have a son?
No, I do not.
Do you think that cooking and the kitchen is your mom's domain, or it's now both genders?
Basically, I'm from Haryana, so I have grown up seeing like that. I do not just say it's justification, but I've seen always like that. Mom doing the home chores and dad doing the outside work.
Now this is, Firuza, one of the things we haven't spoken about, and it comes back to parenthood, is women how many women are you encountering professionally who opted not to have children because they just couldn't juggle the two? Because if what Jagi says is true, that you can't draw that neat line, then some people may just feel it's impossible for me to do both.
Yeah. There are two groups. Women who want to defer their childbearing for say 5 to 6 years when their careers are shooting up.
Yeah.
And those who say, look, we just cannot handle both and we rather defer having a child at all. The biological clock, unfortunately for women,
is in conflict with their career clock?
Absolutely. Yes. In fact, the graph is the same. 24 to 34 is the peak of fertility, and 24 to 34 is when a woman is struggling to enforce a good career, to make a good life for herself. So the advice I would like to give women is twofold. I'd just like to ask the lady behind you, she works at home, she looks after her husband, she works outside. When was the last time she went for a checkup, for her medical checkup for herself?
आप last time अपना medical checkup कब कराया?
मैंने ये अभी 4-5 महीने करवाया था मैंने.
That's good.
That's very good.
That's very good.
I'm very happy to hear that.
I'm very pleased to hear that. Because what happens, we are career oriented, we are home oriented. Do we pamper ourselves? When is the last time any of us could just walk into a beauty parlor and say, okay, I've got 3 hours to myself and I'm going to use that to pamper myself?
There's no time.
There's no time.
And here's my question to Surjit and Suhel. Yes, things are changing, but why do women always have less time than men? It's true. If you ask any woman, she's always more rushed, she's always more anxious, she's always got 40 things simultaneously going on in her head.
But you know, women make a
Precisely
big
because we
deal
are in
of
the
this.
transition stage.
No, what do you mean? 1 second, you wait.
Precisely because we are in the transition stage. At this stage, it is that the women have a greater burden. We are seeing this.
Yes.
There is no denying the fact that a greater responsibility, a greater burden, a greater, if you will, whatever. Plus, though I do want to endorse this, I have noticed this, and I think research is actually confirming this about this multitasking. And I feel inadequate because I can't multitask as well as women. But leave that aside. This is the transition stage. Therefore, you go to Western Europe, you go to the US. I was in the US in the 60s and 70s, very different place than they're now. And you know, I imagine 20 years from now, ask the young kids over here, every young woman, every young man. How do they feel? Would they say, like Kirron said about the housewife, etc.? Not one person will say they see the housewife as a way that our parents did, or if you will.
I will get that perspective. But Suhel, what do you mean by saying women make too much of this?
I think some women, and this is serious, I
Please
think
don't
some
say
women,
whine, because
I'll tell you, a lot of women who are careerists make a big deal about the fact that they are also having to multitask, manage their homes. Now, this is a reality. You can either whine and continuously
But why should
whine.
they have to do both?
No, that's their choice.
That's a choice.
But that's a choice they've made, or society has made for them.
Why can't
Now,
the
she
man,
says,
why
she
can't
says
the man at
biological
home
clock.
help out equally so that their burden is lessened?
No, she says 24 to 34 is prime time for biological clock, prime time for career. Don't blame men, blame God. He's the guy responsible.
Meera,
Let's be logical. No, one minute. Let's be logical.
You can't blame biology on the men.
If Sangita, Reddy...
No, but you can blame the men not taking 50% of the homework on the men. That has nothing to do with biology.
That's a separate issue.
That's happening.
No, it's not a separate issue.
No, you haven't
The
understood.
very simple thing is, men also complain about being busy. We have board meeting, we have this, we have that.
But I've started by saying men are the biggest hypocrites. They will take advantage. Why do you play into their hands? And then you feel guilty about the fact that you're also working. So the reality is, if you've made that choice has been made by you in a society that is pretty unforgiving to women.
So you're saying live with it, suck it up.
No,
if
I'm
if
not
the
saying
man at
live
home
with
is
it.
unfair,
I'm
suck it
saying
up.
I'm saying this is a reality which only time and education can
Let me get Meera and Kirron Jagi is wanting to come in there. Meera, yeah.
Look, Barkha, I'll say one thing, and especially to the young women in this audience. First of all, let's be clear about what is all, right? I think you are perfectly capable of, and you can have both a family and a career. That's very, very important to note. You don't have to give up one for the other. I think the second thing is that we are very, very fortunate, and I think it's very important that Indira Nui talked about her mother rather than her mother-in-law. That is a big stereotype in this country. That is a big stereotype, and I would say, Barkha, to you people who are in the media world, please change this concept of your Saas Bahu serials, because they are really reinforcing a stereotype which is not true. I worked through that biological period. I had my daughter when I was 25 because my parents were supportive, especially my mother, and because my mother-in-law was very supportive. I think that's very, very important to note.
But then it still comes back, Jagi, doesn't it, that a woman can't do it without that extended family support system.
That's true.
Yeah,
you know, and in the West you see women, you see single moms,
But
you do see you see daycare, you see flexi hours. Where are our organizations talking about these things?
May I answer your first question as to why women have less time and they're always doing things? And one of the things we talked about multitasking, and I think that's a myth, because it's more like task shuffling. I believe that women or everybody should learn how to prioritize, compartmentalize, and prioritize everything, focus on something and then move to the other one. And I think one of the reasons that I believe that multitasking is a myth, and I don't think we should give too much, we shouldn't focus too much about
Shouldn't
women.
glorify it too much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Kirron, I want you to respond, or anybody else who wants to what Suhel said. That you've made a choice, you've made this bed, now lie in it.
Well,
shouldn't we push society to make that same society, Suhel, that you call unforgiving to women?
Yes, absolutely.
More empathetic.
You and I can't push society.
We can be among the
society
people who
has to self-change, which it will through education and through rising income levels.
Let Kirron quickly come in there.
What I want to say is, the problem today is not about men or women so much, but about the pressures that life puts on you to achieve. And it's about ambition. If you can curtail that a bit and balance it out, both the men and the women in the family, you can manage to have a fairly
But isn't it true
life.
that ambition is a virtue when in men, and women are made to feel guilty for ambition?
No, because then if
it's true.
But Barkha, when you carry that baby for 9 months in your stomach and you give birth to that baby and you feed that baby is somehow the nurturing and the safety, everything for that child is through the mother.
But then the man will say, then looking after the child is also more your responsibility. Then we're back to square one.
But it depends from man to man. Some men are very nurturing, they probably help out. Some are not.
Okay.
Why are you making it a man versus woman debate? It's not a man versus woman. As Meera says, if there are stereotypes about the mother-in-law, there are several instances of the mother-in-law being a complete dolt. So, that exists.
Some of them are uneducated, they can't do anything. They can't do their homework, sit with them, nothing. So you have kids doing tuitions,
No, and the point is she has tempered her ambition. But now, why on earth did she fight the election and win in Chandigarh?
And I have no home life at all now.
She could have gone back and made methi aloo.
Zero.
So,
I can't boil an egg, Suhel.
That's
please. I can't cook. So let's keep that out of it. And I'm not guilty about it. I'm overjoyed about it. I don't have to go.
Okay. Now we're talking, Surjit is saying if you talk to the young women here, you'll find a generational shift. I think we have a daughter and a mother. Is that correct? We've got a daughter and a mother sitting here. So I just want to ask you, what did you see your mom doing that you think you wouldn't do today?
Well, 25 years ago, my mom made a choice. She was enrolled in a PhD. And my sister was born, but she made this choice that no, I had to prioritize my family. So she left her work, she left her research career. But if I would be asked the same thing, I am not that courageous to just, forego my wishes.
But are you married?
Family. No, I'm not.
So wait for that to happen.
No. Why are you saying that?
She doesn't have to do that.
Wrong thing to say.
Let's not have a fancy debate because it sounds right. Let me give you
Even if you're married, you'll do exactly what you said.
In studies that have been done in various IIMs in India, it has been proven that when there are batchmates, not all batchmates, when passing out of a particular batch, are working.
But I want to ask the mom here.
The lady,
can I ask you, ma'am, would you tell your daughter, since you had to abandon your PhD, what would you tell your daughter today? Would you tell her, कुछ भी हो जाए अपना PhD complete कर?
बिल्कुल, मैं
very good. That's it.
Change that you should
तो complete कर सकती थी.
And I think that's the change that men need to hear.
Yes.
Okay,
so you hear all this, when it comes to the crunch, we'll see. I'm not being cynical. It's all right in these debates for the Sangitas of the world to, uphold the flag of equality.
I intend to.
It gets suppressed at levels depending on income and education. There are certain realities you've got to come to.
Okay, I believe there's somebody here who, we have men who also work from home. Who's here who works from home? You work from home.
Sonia Gandhi didn't work as long as Rajiv Gandhi was. Or
what does that prove?
Just proves that even the West, when put in an atmosphere in a country like ours, which is very unforgiving.
It proves that you can start late and still reach the top.
Okay, here's somebody a man who works from home. Tell us about yourself.
So hi, my name is Sanando. I basically work from home because I'm an entrepreneur. But that's a choice that I made because when we got married, somebody had to go and work in a career, and we were both in the same industry, and with the constant evolution of the society right now, we're in 24/5 culture wherein you have client calls, deadlines, meetings, deliverables, everything going simultaneously.
You're Bengali?
Yeah, I'm a Bengali.
The best men are Bengalis. I'll tell you why. Bengali men are the most liberal.
Okay, now this is just
the most
parochialism.
I'm Punjabi. I'm praising
You're a
Bengali
Calcutta man.
Okay,
but I won't say the same about Mamta Banerjee, but I will.
But the irony is that my
Bengali women are different.
My superheroes are probably my mother, who's sitting on my left, and my mother-in-law, who's sitting on the extreme right.
But why is she not next to you?
Well,
that's how they were seated.
Where's
the mom-in-law? Please raise your hand. Where's the mom-in-law? Please raise your hand, mom-in-law, wherever you are. Okay, there. Okay, now but I have to ask you something. Was it difficult for you to make this decision? Did you feel that you would be judged by your peers, your male friends? Did they ever sort of make fun of you or be sarcastic about it?
It's a risk that I was taking, and with great powers come great responsibility. Isn't that what Peter Parker says? That is told. I mean, the irony is that we're in the 21st century and we're still talking about equality between men and women. But equality isn't justice, is it?
So you go out and work, and he stays at home?
Yes, I work for a recruitment firm called, we are a Japanese recruitment firm, so I'm a consultant.
So how did you feel about this decision? Was it difficult for you to make? Did you feel conflicted as well?
No, I saw that as a responsibility being a pair, that, we have to balance it out. We can't just, I can't just go about saying,
this is excellent.
The thing to ask is, do you help out at home?
Who are you asking? He's at home. Oh, okay.
Mr. Narayan Murthy, as the chairman of Infosys, would probably go and clean his own loo. That's something that I do. I clean my own loo.
Does he cook?
Every once a week.
Does he cook?
Do you cook?
See, I don't know how to cook. Neither does she know how to cook. So, in all honesty, we just go and eat out. But
it's a more equal home.
Yeah.
But
It's
again,
a more
back to the
equal
earlier
home.
point.
What's the earlier point?
It's with education.
Yeah, exactly.
It's with a certain amount of evolution that you understand and respect partners. These are things with the passage of time that will engulf all of India. But to say that every Indian is going to face the same level of equality or, justice in your case is incorrect.
Okay, let me
look at
Surjit.
interesting point here is look at Russia, which has achieved equality of education, equality of everything else, but there it is very, very biased, possibly much more biased than in India. So it's maybe a necessary condition education is, but not sufficient. But I think the demonstration effect, even in Russia today or even in Eastern Europe, etc., what we are seeing, this is a much, much more integrated world. People know wherever you are about what's happening elsewhere. That demonstrates, and that, if you will have and is having a major impact.
I want to just ask all of you, what has been the most difficult moment for you in whether you call it work-life balance or whether you call it work is life? What has been the most difficult moment for you, Kirron? What was your toughest moment as a woman where you said, I didn't think this would happen to me, but here it is. I thought I could be whoever I wanted to, but here is what is stopping me. Was there anything?
Well, many times there were so many things like, your kid's exams, because even when he turns 14, he has boards and all that to do. And if a child falls ill and you're at work, it's the worst possible thing that can happen. Because in my line, you can't cancel a shoot even if you're ill. I've worked through typhoid, I've been working through viral fevers, so has Anupam. Because if we cancel a shoot, logon ke karodon ka nuksan ho jata hai. So we can't do that. And we are contracted. So I think if your child is not well, there were 1 or 2 instances, and I had to work or I had to travel. I think, or when you already say I'm in England shooting or in USA, and you call up and there's a problem at home, and you can't solve it, and you're far out.
And Firuza, you spoke about this as well. So my question is this: that how do you rationalize it to yourself at that time? You just say, well, this happens. It could happen to a man also. So why should I feel more guilty?
Yeah, I think the guilt element has to be separated from the work and the house. Once we know that women are fallible, they can make mistakes. You cannot just be super in everything, and you know the role that you play in your family. It becomes easier. But Barka, today women are making choices. We see young women coming forward and telling us, I know that I'm going to get married late, I want to freeze my eggs. Or I know that we are going to defer having a child until we have our car or until we have our house. I want to freeze my embryos. Or I know that I cannot be in the office and show that I'm pregnant, so I want to do surrogacy. We have examples of this.
But then those are their choices.
Those are their choices.
And it's a choice of an educated law.
Suhel, you keep saying choices, but I ask you again, do our laws, do our attitudes facilitate free choice?
As I began by saying, if you look at corporate India today, you know, the fact that you have to mandate women on boards in itself is silly. I mean, it should happen per se.
And who would want to come in through a quota and forever be questioned in any case as to whether you deserve to be there?
And let me say this: there are a large number of corporations, a lot of industries, sectors, which don't want women because they're worried about a midstream, disengagement in case they're pregnant and
this is an important point which we haven't discussed.
So this is a serious issue with employers. The third to my mind is that men almost have a sense of entitlement in India. There's not one, there are several feudal lords, and that sense of feudalism is all pervasive. You talk about Haryana, the fact that you still tolerate those rogues called cups in itself is silly. But these are the chaps who politicians suck up to. So, you're living with stereotypes, and you're living with a very skewed societal behavior which you haven't been able to get rid of.
So, Surjit, you wanted to come in. Suhel's very important point which we haven't spoken about, organizational concern. It's too, people won't say it overtly today because it's not politically correct, but you feel you invest in a woman as a human resource, and then you also apprehend that, marriage or parenthood will change her attitude to work. Now, one solution to this is daycare, creches, those kind of facilities that make it easier for women to actually have the child and return to work. But the worry, and this is what women battle all the time, and all of us have been women bosses. We worry about it too. Even as women, we worry about women who may just leave after marriage.
And women bosses are more cruel to women at times than men.
How do you know this? How do you know this?
See it, you just see it. But I ask.
Nonsense.
Nonsense, says Meera.
Meera is working in a bank for which has a different story. That will come to later.
Oh, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
I don't know what the problem is. Okay? First, I want to come in on and disagree with Suhel on the fact that corporate India needs to mandate. I think the moment we start getting into mandating,
it is now.
There should be so many women, so many young women, so many old men, so many young men. I think that is the old order. That is the cup order. That is the old feudal order. And actually, since we just had a major election and this thing keeps coming up, and I hope the next time you do this show on women's reservation, I think it's the stupidest idea I've ever seen. Why not have the following, which you should take, the media should take the lead, that basically each party
has to give a number of tickets.
Each party gives 50%, whatever number you want, 70% of nominations to women. That should be what we should push for, not that we should have reservations.
Okay, I've got just 5 minutes left, so before I take final comments, just a couple of questions. Tell us your story.
My story is, my husband took a break 3 years ago only to be at home, and he's working out of home. So it's a perfect, I wouldn't say work-life balance, but it's, we have calibrated our decisions, we have calibrated our aspirations.
Is this your husband?
Yes, that's
fine. Was it a difficult decision to take?
No, not at all.
No?
No.
So the world is changing. Now, another question I have for all of you is: there someone here who would postpone getting married? Oh, I see a man's hand go up. Now, see, that's also speaks to how much thing. I was going to say, would anyone postpone getting married or having a child because of your career? And you raised your hand.
Yes. So I'm basically working in a sales profile right now. Currently, I'm 30 years old. My ambitions are too high for myself. So I would definitely, as a father or as a husband or as anybody, as a part of the society also, would want to play to my roles to perfection. I wouldn't want to delay them at any...
But you don't have a biological clock, so that's
okay, that's fine, that's absolutely fine. But then one of the major questions remains still the same. Forget about women for a second. If we talk about men who sit at home completely, take care of their kids and the work, the entire work-life balance, and keep the woman at work, well, is it something that women in themselves will appreciate?
That's an interesting point, that many women and men are conditioned into roles. You had something to say?
Yes, Barkha. I just have one thing to say. There's nothing like having guilt. I started working when my daughter was 2. Today she's 25. I got divorced. So I've seen flip sides of both of it. As a working mother, I looked after my kids. I was the brand manager for UAE for Guerlain. I traveled, I worked, I looked after my kids, dropped them to school, brought them back, got divorced, came back, put them in the best institution in India, Muir College Girls' School, studied, they've turned out fine.
So you're saying it is possible to do it all and
have it all, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pursuing a PhD on masculinity studies, and I'm also a professor. So there is this question that patriarchy always enforces itself on women, but I think it also does it on men, because they have to live up to the standards of, providing for the family, etc. And also to my girl students, I teach in a girls' college, I ask how many women would marry a man who earns lesser than what they do. So none of them would opt for it.
Let's put that to the audience. How many of you, because that's what Udit also I think raised there, how many of you would, as women, would be comfortable with a man who earns less than you? You would be comfortable?
Very.
Are you?
Yes.
You think this is a non-issue?
I think it's a non-issue. I think the fact is that children need an environment where they can grow up in. And who provides that environment, that's not very important.
So these things are becoming non-issues. Kiran, let's just start taking last comments. I heard you say, I married a man who earned less than you.
Because you were saying this. I said, it doesn't matter. As long as you love a person and the person loves you and you're happy together, that's what matters. Bottom line is that. And the bottom line is also that there's only place for one person's great ambitions in a family.
Now that I have a problem. There's only person for one person ambition.
Because somebody needs to do the rest of the work. You can't have both people traveling in different places and ghar pe koi hai hi nahi.
Do you agree with that?
No, I feel that, you actually have to manage, but then at the end of the day, I have a very supporting husband who helps in housework. But then I feel that society is as such that you land up, my husband is in the defense, so he is at times not there. So you land up in a position where you don't have a choice. So it's your family, you have to look after.
But Kiran, say there's room for only one person's career. Do you agree?
Career means if you have great ambitions. If you have mediocre ambitions, both can do it.
I'm a single parent and I have an 11-year-old daughter, and I believe that everything is doable for a woman.
Of course.
I have seen times when I have tucked her in bed at night and walked out of the house, went to my work late and came back, and I have brought up my child in such an independent way that sometimes she calls me up and she says, Amma, I was coming back from tuition. I had seen that there was less milk in the fridge, so I have bought it on my way back. And my mom, she used to say, 1000 ka note mat do bacche ko, kho degi. I used to tell her, why? When we have to.
So I'm hearing a lot of women saying, it is possible, but quickly, last comments. Do you agree with Kiran, Sangita, that only one person's great ambitions are possible? It has to be either the man or the woman?
I don't agree at all. I think that you can have it all. I think there's a matter of phasing. There are different periods in life.
So you have to calibrate.
You calibrate that. But Barka, the important point that I really wanted to make was, we need to help push society in this way. There's some brave women who have done it. There's some very liberal, balanced partners who have done it. But we also need society, industry,
and you need
legislation,
institutional backups.
You need government, institutional
One change,
backup.
Jagi, you'd like to see. Would we like to see equal paternity leave?
I think that's a very small issue. On the larger issue, I'd like the larger issue to be taken care of, is that how can we actually bridge this gap? The gender stereotyping has to go. And for that to go, the society, the leaders, whether it's corporate leaders, political leaders.
It's a long haul process.
It's a long haul process. Otherwise, another 100 years and we'll still keep talking about, we'll be sitting here discussing the same subject again.
Yeah, 15 seconds to everybody who hasn't had a say. Firuza, just last thoughts?
I think every part of one's life is important. You have to know in which phase you are in. Whether your career is important at that point or the family is important.
But sometimes it doesn't offer that coincidence. Meera?
But I think each of us, every working woman here, is responsible for changing those stereotypes, especially Suhel's ones, on cruel bosses. And I think really you can use technology to make it possible to work in your own time and space. We need to offer those policies.
I want to react to Suhel's.
How could you use technology if you're an actor?
Where he said that women bosses are really difficult. I have been married. I am going through a divorce, and I have women bosses, and they're excellent. They let me time to go to court, and they ask me if everything is okay.
Okay.
But
So
both men and women can have it all, and many of them who are lucky do have it all. It's a matter of adjustment.
They can
for
have it
man
or not at
and
the
for
same
woman.
time.
Without
They can have it all
adjustment
at the
from
same
the two,
time.
it is not possible.
I'm out of time. So
No one can
Kirron
have
has the last word.
it. We submit it's a woman's world. Just don't make this into a huge badge of honor debate.
Kirron, you have said the most controversial thing. Only one person can pursue their dreams.
Yes, but pursue their dreams if both have super ambitions. Let me tell you that in my field, it is not possible to work from home or to use the internet and give a performance on screen, or be a politician with a constituency. You know,
fair enough. I can see the complex
But you can be a member of parliament without speaking.
I want to work properly.
That's a great example.
One last word, and I think that society really is a bird that needs both wings.
Yeah.
You need the men
One of the
and the
things we
women
didn't
to
talk
be
about,
equal.
I think it's
Exactly.
really important not just
We
how you
need
bring
both.
up your daughters and what freedom
Yeah.
you give them, but what you
And
teach your sons. And I
Yeah.
think I take the
That's
point
more
that as
important.
women, we have to shift and push
And I've
society
taught
into
my
change.
sons.
We leave it there. Complex debate. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. And pursue your dreams. I think that's important, whether you're a woman
And be there for
or
your
a man.
children even if you're working.
Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
इस जन्म में नहीं तो अगले जन्म